Hello, everybody. This is Eric Enge. I'm kicking off the Digital Marketing Excellence Show. Rebekah Radice is struggling with getting in, so I apologize for that. She's rebooting her computer. She should be with us very shortly. So we are going to talk about strategies for growing your presence on any social media network. I see she's trying to come in right now, by the way, so we should have her in just a second. So it should be a good, fun show. Please queue up your questions. We love to have questions on our shows, and we're looking forward to handling those questions. Rebekah, you've made it back.
I have somehow, some way.
Excellent. I don't have the sound delay we had before. Now it sounds much better.
Well, good. Yeah, sorry about that. It kept telling me that Google was having trouble and it could not connect to the Hangout. Very strange. Never run into that before, but there's always a first time for everything.
Yes, indeed. So, in any case, welcome, and thanks for joining me, Rebekah. I'm really thrilled to have you back on the show again. We've done this a couple times before, I think, now.
Yes, we have. Likewise. I always love when we get to spend time together.
Yes, indeed. So, just for fun, I know we're supposed to talk about the master formula for growing your social network, but and we're definitely going to do that. But I think it would also be fun to talk a little bit about, well, we seem to have a new social network starting every 3 or 4 days right now. I mean,
it does feel that way.
Yes, you can have. Hello, what's all this then? Or sue me, and you have all these various kinds of things that people are throwing at us. It's like,
yeah.
But it's actually kind of interesting. What do you think is behind all these new social media networks coming out?
It's really interesting, isn't it? To me it says that there's a need. People are seeing that there's a need for something new, maybe something different, and looking for that space where they can really create, I think, a whole new community, because both of them feel so very different, not only from the user interface and just the ease of use, but also the conversations that are being had over there between Elo and Sue. It's very interesting to see that I think they're meeting different needs for different people, and as people begin to grow and kind of expand outside of the walls of those social networks that we've all been using for quite some time, whether it's Google+, Facebook, Twitter, I think that we're just seeing that, people are feeling that there's that constant evolution, that need to grow into something new.
Right. So with Elo, we have that we will never sell your information, and the basic business model they've talked about is that they'll upsell value-added services to users as opposed to selling ads to companies. Yet at the same time, they're perfectly happy to have companies on there, and they can be as commercial as they want, and people can choose to pay attention to them or not.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, and then on the flip side, Sue is a completely different business model. So yeah, it is. It's very interesting to see how different they both are. And again, I think that goes back to what I was saying about community. I think different people are gravitating towards each of these for very unique reasons. Elo came out and it was kind of that, take social media and flip it on its head, version of a new social network, where they took everything that everybody ever said negative about every social network and tried to do away, I think, with all of that and keep it very clean, very simple, and very easy for people to connect. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with both of them.
Yeah, and are you doing anything on either one of those? Are you active at any level with them?
Not a whole lot, honestly. I've spent time on both of them. claimed my name. I've been over there, gotten just a feel for both of them as far as ease of use and how to use them. But no, I haven't. And truth be told, it's probably because the people that I'm working with, really need to not get caught up in the new shiny objects. They need to master the social networks that they're on right now. So I'm not advising my clients necessarily to put a whole lot of time and energy into these new social networks. It's going to take some time for them to really figure out if their consumers are over there, their potential clients are even spending time over there. So for me, yes, it's testing the waters, figuring it out, seeing what it's all about, but I haven't had the opportunity to really put too much time and effort into it.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I mentioned, of course, is the early days of a new social network is when there's the opportunity to get into land grab mode, and I know a lot of people rush right over because they want to try to build large followings, and we are talking about the master formula to grow your following on any social network here. One strategy could be, well, let's run on over to Sue or Ello, and because I'll be an early adopter and I'll be pushing out all this great content early on, I'll build a large following over there. I mean, that can work. That, of course, it does presume that the social network succeeds or addresses your audience in some fashion.
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. That's certainly a strategy. But I think we've talked a lot too about the fact that growing a large audience numbers don't necessarily equal sales for a lot of companies, and don't necessarily mean that your time is best spent in just growing those numbers. And it's two more networks that you've got to create content for, that you've got to get in there and actively spend time cultivating those relationships, finding people to connect with. So it's just one more thing to add to your plate. And again, for me, it's always determining where your time is best spent. Where are you going to get your biggest bang for your buck, basically? And it's not necessarily going to be in being the first person out of the gate. Like you said, I completely get that whole strategy, and there's definitely something to be said for being an early adopter, but not necessarily the best strategy for everybody.
Right, and you brought out one of the key points I wanted to make sure that we brought out on the show today, which is it's not just about large numbers, right? Here on Google Plus, if you have a chance to talk to anybody who's on the suggested user list, their numbers of followers grow very quickly, but the number of quality interactions they get don't seem to scale in any way related to being on the suggested user list or not. And the point that I'm trying to get at there is, well, 100,000 followers might not be better than 5,000 followers, because it's who you have the interactions with that matters most, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah. It goes back to quality versus quantity, and who are those people that are truly looking to connect with you, especially, I keep going back to small business owners, entrepreneurs, those people that they don't have a whole lot of time. Time is money. And so you really have to focus on making those meaningful connections, not just building up your numbers, because, yeah, I mean, you're so right in those people that are on the suggested users list. I've had multiple conversations about that where, yeah, you can grow at a rapid rate, but it doesn't mean that your engagement is going to improve. It doesn't mean that you're actually building those relationships, as I said, with those right people. So I think you have to be very, very careful where you're spending your time, but also what you're focusing on when you're there. Are you focusing on just gaining a massive number of followers because it sounds good? I think those days are gone. I think those days of us going, wow, you have 200,000 followers are over, because what does that translate into dollars for you? And for me, that's really where the rubber meets the road. If it's not making you money, if it's not growing your business, then what's the purpose? Why are you doing it every single day?
Yeah, no, totally. And that's another one of the major points we need to make sure that came out in the show, is it really has to be about growing your business. So growing your followers might be, if you have 5,000 of the right followers, you might be doing awesome in terms of return on your time here in social media. In fact, I'm going to throw up a comment from Vivek here. Do the follower numbers really matter? If not enough of them are really willing to spend money with you? And he's playing back what you said, Rebekah, and that's exactly the point. So while we are going to talk about how you grow your following today, what we've kind of done with our intro here is led to a couple of the first important conclusions. And this latest one is it's about growing a quality following, not just a huge numeric following. And I can tell you that there's probably 30 or 40 relationships that I've developed on Google Plus that are of real importance to my business, and there might be another 30 or 40 that are interesting. And so the question at the end of the day is, how do I grow that number, right? And that's really a big question, because that's how you get engaged in things that help drive your business. So, Rebekah, have you frozen? Oh boy. I apologize, everybody. It looks like Rebekah's connection has frozen here. For the time being, I will continue, and hopefully she'll be back with us very shortly. Again, this is the big key. And by the way, do fire questions away. I'll be happy to take them on in the meantime. So quality over quantity is a big deal, and really the way that you want to think about things. I'm just going to throw up another Vivek comment here. Early adopters are weirdos, and they are set to inherit the earth. Well, Vivek, I'm not sure that early adopting is the solution, as we said earlier in the show. Early adopting works if your business audience is on the network of your choice, right? And that's what we were talking about with both Elo and Sue, is if your audience is going to be over there, then that's a fine place to be. So with that, I'm going to share another tip while we wait for Rebekah to make her way back in, because I'm sure she's working hard at that, at doing that. Another really big thing you want to do is you want to find a specific time or ways to set aside time to do your stuff on social media, in it all the time. And it's really hard to do a constructive job of running or growing a business if you're responding to every single social media ping taking place. And you really do want to avoid thinking that way. And I'll tell you what I do. When I get up in the morning, kind of looking at social media stuff and doing a few replies and doing a post or two, something like that, to me, that's a way of waking up. For those who saw my wake up call picture related to children of Syria, I wasn't really the way I wake up, but I exaggerated how out of it I felt. But for me, it's sort of a way of letting the brain turn on. It's like I'm kind of trying to wake up, and then it's kind of a way to get started in my day. I also will poke at it a little bit at lunch, and then a little bit before dinner time. And those are the main things that I do to help me have time set aside. And then for most of the rest of the day, I ignore it. And, you know, exceptions, okay, maybe I have 5 minutes to kill before a call and I might go poke and look at something. But I don't let myself get, you know, dragged down, you know, some sort of side path. By the way, we're hoping Rebekah will be back with us in just a moment. She's trying to restart her computer again. She's having some sort of connection problems, but she should be back with us shortly. I'm going to take a question from Omi Sido or Sido. I apologize for the pronunciation. Is it all about the money when participating in a social network? That's actually a great question. It doesn't actually have to be only about the money. You can have other reasons for engaging in social media. But even then, if you probably have some purpose, right? The purpose might be to network, to meet somebody in particular, or meet certain types of people, talk about, maybe you're a music lover and you want to share your passion for music with a group. Even in those situations, it's not just about building a large following, right? You really want to be able to, focus on what do you do to meet your goals. Yeah, Rebekah, I'm gonna have a message here from Rebekah. She's still, excuse me a second. Okay. So what I'm going to do, so it isn't just me as a talking head, I'm going to invite a special guest star to join us. Okay. There we go. Since Mark Traphagen is listening in, Mark, maybe you can join me and we can help fill the air with more than just my prattling while we wait for Rebekah to make her way back in. But again, it isn't necessarily just about the money, but there still should be a purpose to it. Even if it's just, serendipity and you just want to learn and discover new things. I think that's, a great way to think about things too. And there could be people that want to do that with social media. You still want to use your time efficiently, in my opinion, and it isn't necessarily just about a large following, because you want to have conversations with people that you value. Oh, look, it's Mark Traphagen. He's joined the show. Can you hear us? Oh, sound not quite on yet, so he's coming in. With that, I'm just going to wait a second, and we'll have Mark with us, and then.
Okay, I just had to kill the video, the show, because it's getting.
So we didn't get the double overlap. So this is the new version of Rebekah Radice right here. Say hi, new Rebekah.
Yeah, here I am, just as cute and beautiful as ever.
Yeah, there you go. Excellent. So, and Scott Scowcroft has a comment here I'm going to throw up too. There's no better way to expand one's service area than to go online, especially for a solopreneur. Quality trumps quantity in terms of followers every time. So, totally agree, Scott. So, and by the way, hopefully we will get Rebekah back. She's having some sort of connection problems out there, and but in the meantime, we've managed to scare up a guy who claims he knows something about social media, and we can test that claim during the course of the show here.
I have 10 followers on Twitter now, and I proclaim myself a social media guru. Ask me anything.
Yeah, ask you. Oh, well, that sounds like a. They ought to put Ask Me Anythings up as a way of doing a kind of social media event. Maybe someone will invent that at some point.
Looks like Rebekah is trying to rejoin us.
Yes, indeed. So, okay, good. So now that we've covered some background, I want to start to get into what do we do to to grow our following. And one of the things that I've always enjoyed about some of the posts that Rebekah puts up. Welcome back, Rebekah.
One more time, we'll try this.
Yes, and we got another guest on in the meantime. So.
I saw that. Mark, how are you?
Hi, Rebekah. If I'd known I was coming, I would have dressed for the occasion. I'm feeling kind of naked. Not literally naked, folks. Just figuratively naked.
Yes, I'm glad it's only figuratively. So.
Yes. So is your
gosh, I'm almost going to get my feelings hurt. Like Google doesn't like me today. Just keeps kicking me out.
It is sad.
That is sad.
I know.
So, one of the things that I've always enjoyed that you do, Rebekah, and this is sort of the genesis of the idea for this show, is that you do push out, for different social media networks, sort of the formula, right? And the formula has a few elements of it, and I think it would be kind of fun to create one on the fly here. So. Let's just let's make it Google Plus, since we're in Google Plus, and let's just do and run through a list of things to do on Google Plus to help grow your following. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to give one, then I ask Mark to give one, and then I'll give one, and we'll go in sequence for a little bit. So, are you ready?
Fun. So we're talking about kind of a formula to how to best position your content, or is that what you're thinking?
Just grow a relevant following on Google+.
Got it. Well, it does definitely start with content. So I think it's becoming that resource, whether you're creating your own content, whether you're curating content. It's finding content that's relevant to your industry and then sharing that on a consistent basis and sharing it in a way that makes it interesting to people. So talking about what made it interesting to you. I know we all see a lot of just slapping stuff up, throwing up a link, and running off. With no context around that content. So really put some thought into the content that you share. Share what about it excited you, or what about it really resonated with you, and really help your followers understand why was it important to you? What about it really stood out? Because those are the posts that grab my attention. And you and Eric, you and Mark do such a fantastic job at that in saying, wow, here's something that's happening, maybe a change with Google, whatever the case might be, and really breaking it down into layman's terms for those of us that really need that, and helping me understand what is this change that's coming, why do I need to understand it, and how does it fit into my business? So I think that's a key part too, as you're out there sharing content, is really help people understand, that what's in it for me, why does it matter to my business? Yep.
Mark?
Yeah, when I think back on what I think kickstarted my my following and my following growth on Google+, definitely, content, as Rebekah said, that's the foundation. You've got to have that there. And it's important not only for the content itself and the quality of it, but because people thinking about following you are going to go look at your profile. And what they see there, they're going to judge you by. If you just have, as you said, link drops, it's not going to work. But the number one thing beyond the content for me was seeking out and getting involved in other relevant conversations that were about things that I know about or can contribute something to. I think on Google Plus, more than any other social network that I've been on, that really had an effect. People will follow you if they don't know you, but they know somebody else and they're in a conversation that they're interested in. You come in and you contribute to that conversation in constructive ways. You bring help, you answer questions, you raise good questions, things like that. People will follow you. And I know that because many of the people who I most value on Google Plus today, I found in other people's conversations. So, I think that's not the only way by any means, but it is a major way that you can not only get more followers, but get relevant and get the best followers, because you're doing it in a place where people are already talking about your area and what you're interested in.
Yeah, so one that I would throw out there is find the people whose opinion that you value and follow them and engage with them and learn from what they are doing on the platform, right? So and you can learn a lot just by doing that. And yes, that might be what you call an influencer, but it doesn't have to be. It just has to be, make sure that the people that you're following yourself and what's coming into your stream, that you're filling your stream with things that are relevant and of interest to you, and that will prompt you to get engaged in ways on the platform. That's very useful. I think that's a great thing to do too. Rebekah, we're back to you.
Yeah, for me, communities were a big part of that, being able to find those relevant conversations. It's kind of like what Mark was saying in getting interactive with people. Communities really allows you to do that in a very targeted way. So knowing what are your interests? What do you like to talk about? What would you talk about all day long if you had the opportunity? And then finding those communities that are creating conversation, sharing content around that, and then doing exactly what Mark was talking about, just jumping into those conversations and offering valuable feedback or thoughtful insights into whatever that content was shared. I think we've all seen the conversations about the attaboys are just saying, hey, great content. While that's nice, it doesn't necessarily create that opportunity to start a conversation, get to know people on a little bit deeper level. So think about, what can you say that will actually further that conversation, that might take it down a different road, might make people look at that topic a little bit differently. So give your own unique spin, your thoughts on what is exactly being said. But communities, I think, are a huge opportunity to plug yourself in, kind of insert yourself into those conversations that are happening that are very, very relevant to your business.
Okay, Mark, one more from you.
Well, I think that diving into that just a little bit more deeply, it's a great area to get involved in. Just something I wanted to say about it from a more strategic standpoint is I thought it was very significant that in his recent and first public interview, Dave Besbris, who's now the head of Google+, in his interview for Recode magazine online, when asked, what's working with Google+, what's really there, and he said the three most powerful things. The first two, every one of us could name ourselves, right? Photos and Hangouts. Those are obvious. But the number three that he mentioned was communities. And he said they are seeing tremendous things happening in communities, significant activity. To me, that means that's probably public and private, because they see all the activity. And there's probably tons of valuable private communities. I belong to a few that are very valuable to me. So what that tells me, why I'm bringing that up, is if Dave Besbris says that, I think that communities are something where they're going to be paying a lot of attention in the future, and Google's going to be building more tools for communities, putting more emphasis on them, just as they did for photos, or have been doing for photos, just as they've been doing for Hangouts. So maybe another little incentive that communities and Google+ are where it's at, and good places to be involved in.
Yeah, and then for just the last one before we get into some more questions from people. I actually want to expand on something that Mark said earlier. He talked about finding conversations, and I want to draw that out a little bit, because I know one of the things that Mark does very well and that I need to do better is go seek out conversations that aren't the ones that you're usually in, right? That are still relevant to you, right? You really want to try to get into those kinds of things, because that's, in addition to communities and the other things we talked about, that's how you get exposure to other people and are able to show common interests with other people and hopefully show that you have something intelligent to say. And that's a really great way to expand and get into other things. So I'm going to take a couple of questions, unless you want to throw anything more out there, Rebekah, before I do that. Oh, Rebekah froze up again. All right. So that's really unfortunate.
I thought she was sitting very still.
Yes, well, she's very attentive, actually, what she is being right now. Okay, so I'm going to take another question from Omi Saito. How to keep branding consistent about all platforms while growing our presence there? Do we have to be consistent? What are your thoughts, Mark?
Well, that's another great question, and I think that it's just think about being a brand, and especially on social media where so many of us are doing it as ourselves. Recently we started, Stone Temple Consulting started a new community on Google+, a thought leadership and personal branding community, because Eric and I certainly know the power, we know that Rebekah knows it, of a personal brand. If you can get out there, representing your business as a real person, become an expert, become known, sharing with people, all those things, they reflect back on your business. People at the end of the day want to do business with people. So having said that, you need to think about it as building a brand. What does a real brand do? You have a consistent look and feel. Use the same basic profile backdrop on different social media networks. The same color scheme, same logos, whatever you do for yourself on that. Try to go by the same name everywhere. These are just basic things that a brand does, because you want to be reinforcing everywhere that people see you, that you're that same person. You want to get every opportunity to get in their mind. But there's a little more to it than that. And I could talk for an hour on this or more, but just to say, beyond those basic things of the look and feel of your personal brand, it's consistent in your message. The things that you're talking about, the things that you emphasize, how you talk about them, that wherever people encounter you, they get to know, like, oh, he's the guy, she's the gal you want to talk to or go to about this or that. So again, a lot more we could say on that, but I think particularly if you are looking to build an authoritative presence online for whatever, for a business, for your cause, whatever it might be, that those kind of consistencies do become very important. You do ultimately have to think like a brand thinks.
Right, and that does, so consistency is critical. I mean, brands really talk about what's their message and what do they stand for, what's their mission. These all sound like, artificial and maybe not very important things if you don't understand what they actually do in a larger company. They really help you get a sense of focus and things like that. But even in a smaller company, yeah, your audience might be a little different on different social platforms, so you might tailor it a little bit, and that may lead you to be talking about somewhat different topics on one platform versus another. But it really shouldn't be fundamentally different, right? It should still be coming out of that same core area of expertise, and so I think that's very important. I'm going to fire up a question from Jadine Mela, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. What about an artist serving customers, not businesses, or how to engage sellers / shops carrying my creative products?
Well, I think that that's certainly two different questions there. The first one is engaging with your customers as an artist or potential customers. I think the number one thing you want to be thinking about is creating a community around what you do, and by that it doesn't have to be in one place. I don't mean creating a community on Google Plus necessarily.
It could be on another social platform.
Yeah, or just in general thinking of, when I say community, maybe another way of saying that is audience. That you get yourself known. Again, the things we've been saying here, finding where the conversation's going on about the kind of art that I do, and entering into those and contributing in those in ways that make people want to pay attention to you. I think most of the people watching us probably understand that on social, what Chris Brogan calls selly sell doesn't work. You know, you can't come right out and say like, please, you know, please come here and look at my paintings and buy. But if you are, you know, building a community around that and work from the fans. And one thing I think I want to say to that question is, everybody has, you know, some small group, even if it's very small, of people who like your work. If you're an artist, you're a creative person, seek to find where those people are, the people who've already bought and liked your work, and do what you can to keep them engaged with you, and build from there, because that's your initial fan base. You know, help them every way that you can, promote them, talk about them wherever you can, so that they, you know, think well of you. They're thinking more often of you. They'll begin to talk to other people and build that community around you. But you start small. You find that audience that you already have, and you find ways to find out where they are, find out how they want to be engaged with, and it's like starting a fire with two sticks. You get the fire going, and then you keep feeding it.
Yeah, we also have a comment here from William Rock of a art buyers and sellers community on Google+. So again, in terms of answering the question, didn't have to be specific to Google+. Mark Traphagen's answer was, you know, applicable to really any network, I think. But here's one specific example for you, Janine. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay, excellent. So welcome back, Rebekah. It's your fourth
we'll
time.
See if I stick around. Yeah, I know. I am so sorry. I have never run into this situation where it just doesn't like me. It just keeps freezing every single time, and then it doesn't want to let me back in.
Yeah, if it weren't for the fact that your face was freezing in a mode, it would, you know. Okay, I'm just kidding about that part.
Crazy.
But yeah, no, that's too bad. But I'm glad that you've made your way back
one more time.
Yes, indeed.
We'll see if I stick around.
And we have another follow-up from Janine. I've been in that community, William Rock. Mark Traphagen, do you mean talking with other artists? I'm actually going to take a little bit of that question. Well, if you think about it, a lot of times people who well, I'm going to state a supposition here. A lot of times people who are interested in art might be interested in watching a communication or community of artists talking about what they're doing, and they might learn and value a lot of that. And that might be a way to attract a lot of people interested in art like yours to one place and to see and learn about you. Because if they're looking for that kind of conversation, then yes, I think it could mean talking with other artists.
I think that's good, Eric. I think that, you know, that's certainly a place where if there's a community of artists who are talking with each other, and it's an open community, then certainly other people who are maybe not professional artists but are very interested in that will be in that community and at least watching the conversation. So, you know, it's a good place to get known. But specifically, I was talking about building more community with your fans. Well, making them become your fans, but your present customers, people who've already bought from you or who already know your work and you've encountered them. When I think if you're building an online presence in anything, this doesn't just apply to art. You've always got to start small, and you've got to look for who's already liking what I'm doing. And when I find somebody who likes what I'm doing, what can I do, first of all, to draw them in to my audience, where they want to, you know, they'll continue to engage. It's not just like a one-time thing where they say like, oh, wow, she does really good work, and then on to the next thing. But where you give them incentive to come back again and look at more of what you're doing, and you know, where you're reaching out to them and having good conversations, you're helping them, you're talking with them about their interests. What do you like about art? What do you look for in a good painting or whatever the art you're doing? And by that, making a personal connection with them, and then one by one, remember I said it's like rubbing two sticks together to start that little fire. You can expand from that, because as they get to like you, get comfortable with you, get to think of you as a friend, they're going to begin to talk to you about you to their friends, who inevitably they're going to have some friends who share interests with them. and then they become part of your audience, and you draw them in. There's, we don't have time to go into all the ways that you can do that, but think creatively in ways, and always think from the other person's perspective. I think about, what would be meaningful to me? Boy, I'm getting to engage with this artist whom I like. What would really mean a lot to me? What could she do for me that would make me feel like I want to follow her anywhere? I don't know what the answer to that is for you, but I would think about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you're still there, right, Rebekah? All
I'm
right.
still here, not
Yeah.
frozen.
Excellent. So one of the things that you've mentioned, as I mentioned earlier, that you've done a lot is you put out these posts with these rapid-fire bullet points. You did one, I think, recently for LinkedIn, or I know you've done it for Pinterest and things like that. I'd love it if you could, dig one of those up and we could share it and just walk through that, because I think there's there's a cadence to it, right? It's like, follow a certain number of people every day, do a certain amount of interactions, that kind of thing. Or you could perhaps walk through that concept for us.
Yeah, so I think what you're talking about is just kind of breaking down the article that I'm actually posting. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Remember we had you, Fitzpatrick and I on a show. I don't know, 8 weeks ago, and you guys just did a bang, 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 10.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, one of those kinds of posts. Because what I like about those is it does set a frame of reference that gets you to think about, okay, if I were to put in a little bit of time every day, how would I manage my time? You see what I'm saying? To get to a desired result. Okay, so I'm thinking that Rebekah is frozen yet again, so we're going to have to find that on our own. So sorry about that, everybody in the audience. Unfortunately, the way the internet is, this sometimes happens, and our sincere apologies for that. And we'll just continue on, and she may or may not make it back at some point. But why don't we try covering that on our own, Mark? Literally, if you're a small business owner, just take that for example, and you've got a half hour in the morning and a half hour in the afternoon, which sounds generous. That's probably a lot of time. What would you do if you're trying to grow your visibility? Now you have very limited time, right? And I'm going to seed the discussion by saying, kind of outlining what I've seen Rebekah do a few times. It's like, follow 3 new relevant people every day. Place comments on at least 2 other people's, thoughtful comments on at least 2 other people's posts. Put up a post in a relevant community on something that you're thinking about every day. So this is the kind of formulas that Rebekah is kind of famous for laying out there. Do you have a couple extra elements that you could add to what I've just said that are kind of in that bullet point level?
Yeah, I think maybe you could add into that. Maybe people won't think about this as a social media activity, but scheduling time, maybe once a week to get up some kind of a blog post on your site, if you have a website, that you have something to talk about when you're out there doing those social media activities, something to promote a little bit, something to share with other people, something that people can go back and look at and see like, oh, there's something behind this guy. But I think that the bigger point, what you're saying, Eric, and that Rebekah has often emphasized, I think is valuable, is if you do have limited time per day to be on social media, then treat it like you would other tasks in your job. Schedule it out, break it down, because we all know what happens if you just go on social media with no plan. You just start clicking from link to link, you wander from thing to thing. The next thing you know, you've gone way over the amount of time that you meant to spend there, and you've maybe not accomplished what you set out to accomplish. So you've got to be very intentional and purposeful about it. And I always say also to focus. I think Rebekah said this back at the beginning of the show when she was on, is that you can't, if you got limited time, you can't be everywhere. So in your beginnings, try to be really, really good at one or two networks rather than trying to be spread out on all of them.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think the focus is a big deal too. So it really does start with selecting, if you have that kind of limited time, the right network, and it's probably one network, because it's better to make a real impression on one and get some real headway going on one rather than kind of dabbling inconclusively in a whole bunch. You definitely don't want to fall into that, and if you really are limited to something like 30 minutes a day, then that's really the way you need to think about it, is which one appears to be the best match with my audience, and what do I do to get the most out of that, and just get a really crisp list of the things that you're going to do, and make sure you get through that every day, and you can kind of adjust the balance over time as you get further into it.
I was going to say another thing you can do if you want to be really hyper organized about it, and I can't say that I've always done this, but I've done it at times, and sometimes I drop out of maintaining it. But I think the same way that a good salesperson has a contact management system, some system by which they keep track of prospects, who are the best leads out there, what are the leads I should spend my most time on, and develop those sort of things, that you can do that with your social media following. People, be conscious of who is adding the most value in your audience, who's contributing the most, who is out there sharing your stuff, that kind of thing. And actually consciously, actually physically make a list of those people and keep that list dynamic, update it from time to time, so that if you have limited time, you say, okay, I've got to get as much bang as I can out of this next half hour. I'm going to make sure that I spend some time with these people. Maybe, here's something I did in the early days of Google+. Another thing that I think helped me out a lot was that I had those lists in those days, and when I had limited time, I would keep a rotating circle of the people that I really wanted to build relationships with, that I thought were going to be the most valuable for me. And so then I would, if I had limited time, I'd just go to that circle. Not looking at all the stream going by, and I would go through and I'd just enter into a few conversations with those people, plus one some of their stuff, share some of their stuff, so that every day, I wasn't doing everybody in the list every day, but they were getting regular attention from me. And over time, that in most cases, that's going to make them pay more attention to you.
Right, and now, since Google Plus has replaced everything else in your life, you can do everybody every day. Did I exaggerate that?
Yeah, it actually takes me now 3 days to go through all 105,000 followers and plus one every one of them. I used to be able to do it in a day. Now it takes me 3 days without sleep.
And you do that every day? Yes, I got it.
Yeah, three days work every day. That's what you get out of me, Eric.
Yes, indeed. So I just want to mention to Michael Ross here, by the way, Rebekah is a very experienced Hangout on Air professional, so she normally does not have internet problems, but unfortunately the internet is still the internet, so I don't think it's a bandwidth connection problem on her end. She knows to be plugged into a high-speed connection. But I don't know, sometimes this is just what happens with these things. So all of this is great. I think the other thing to think about is, as you grow a bit more and you're ready to add a second network and start doing things with that, as we talked about before, really important to maintain that brand consistency. But let's say you've gotten fairly successful on one network. Do you have any thoughts on how you might pick what your next network is, Mark?
That's a good question. That's a hard one for me to answer because I'm, that person we talked about in the beginning, the early adopter, as you know, who jumps into almost anything that comes along and kicks its tires and gets under the hood and shakes the spark plug wires to try to see what it's doing. So, I do try to jump in on everything. Obviously, can't be fully involved in everything, but picking the next one to go to, wow. Because it's hard to answer. I know it always sounds like a cop-out to say like it depends, but I think it really does in this case. It depends on so many variables, but this is where you can learn and pay attention to your particular vertical, your business space, what's working, see what's working for other people out there, and where, talk to people, where are you getting, if you can build community, if you're in that kind of situation where there are other people that are in your space but are willing to talk with you. They don't feel it's not so hyper competitive that nobody else will share. If you have that advantage, then ask where else are you getting audience? Where else are you getting traction? Where else are you getting traffic to your site? Whatever your goal, your objective is, and that can be a good lead. And sometimes it'll be surprising. Let me give a quick example of that. For our space, we would never think of Pinterest. I don't say never, but that would not be a high goal for us, because the cliche about Pinterest, of course, is that it's all about fashion and crafts and decoration, home decoration and food, right? And that's not exactly our product space. But through talking to other people who do what we do, we began to learn that there is a growing audience there for other things, and there are more and more people that are using Pinterest just as a discovery mechanism and as a bookmarking mechanism for great content in all kinds of verticals. So it's not, we're not going to get a huge audience on Pinterest, but it might be worth experimenting with and exploring. So there's always got to be that kind of experimental aspect too, I think.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think you can also see whether or not a platform has good-sized communities in your business space, because if they do, then that's an indication that could be a good place to jump in.
Absolutely.
Just going to pick up on a comment from, earlier on from Biting Edge, elevating others, always a win-win. So I just want to expand upon that a little bit, because there's a couple ways to do that. If there's somebody who's an up-and-coming star on a platform, it's really very smart to help them get oriented and get their legs under them and get successful. In fact, it's really, generally speaking, really important to be seen helpful altogether. But this notion of elevating others is really a very good thing. I do think there's a place for constructive critique and helping people learn based on advice as to what you're seeing that they might be able to do better. And I think that's a very useful thing to do as well. But certainly this notion of helping other people is a very important one.
Well, I'm so glad he brought that up, because that is so key, and I would have been sorry if we hadn't talked about that here. If there's anything that social media is teaching us, it's something that we ought to know already from our regular lives, and that is there is a real truth out there that the more you give, the more you get. Now, there's a trick in that if you're just giving to get, that becomes a gimmick, and eventually that will be exposed, and that won't work. So it's a little hard to recommend this as a tip, because any tip is like you do strategically, but and that can ruin it if you're not careful. But if you can do it sincerely, I know the example I always come back to, and I use it so often, but it's just my hero in this is Rand Fishkin. Rand is so loved in the industry already. He's so respected. Rand could just talk Rand all day, and people would listen, because he has that authority, that respect. But just follow Rand Fishkin for a while on any network where he's active. Here on Google+, on Twitter, you're going to see him so much of the time promoting other people's stuff. And it's not always the people you'd expect. It's not his little club, the people that he loves and sure he promotes them. but he's, more often than not, he's got somebody you never heard of that's done some amazing thing on some obscure blog, and he finds it and puts it out there and blows it up. And what that does, and again, I'm being careful, I'm not saying like don't do this as a manipulative technique, but ultimately that builds him, that builds his brand, because it reflects back on what kind of person he is. It's so important in this game to realize, like, so much more now matters not on just what you say and your ability and your knowledge, your expertise, but who you are. And that, never discount that. A lot of your following will follow you. They're not going to follow you ultimately if you don't know what you're talking about. But if you can combine expertise with friendliness, with giving, with helping others, and with elevating others, you've got something very powerful.
Now you've got me depressed, Mark. I've got no chance.
Eric, you are so generous at that, and so good at that. Don't worry about that. You're.
Oh yeah. I'm just. So Carmen Rojas sums it up nicely here, by the way.
Wow,
helpful is the new viral. So.
There's the quote of the show. I love that. That's somebody make that into a quote graphic.
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to throw up one more question, this time from Michael Ross. It seems that many just blow up followers and impact. Is it possible to go big in 20 minutes a day? It seems an overwhelming involvement of resources and time to make a true impact. I'm going to actually start off the answer on that one and just say that it's not really about follower count, right? I mean, as I said earlier, you might have 5,000 followers. Honestly, it could be 1,000 followers. So we had, let's see, I'm trying to, hang on, I'm trying to remember her name, Jadine Mela, our artist friend in here earlier today. My guess is that she doesn't need 100,000 followers to get business. She needs to find places where she can engage in useful dialogues where potential customers will at least be watching those dialogues and maybe even participating in them. That might be some number of hundreds of followers or 1,000 followers, or just being in the right communities. And you have to, I mean, let's be honest, you have to test it and try it and see that it's working for you and that you're getting value out of it, and adjust over time.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Eric. You have to be realistic. What is big? What is big for you? You have 20 minutes a day. Frankly, you're not going to be Chris Brogan or Jay Baer. That's not likely going to happen. But you can accomplish a lot in 20 minutes a day. And if you get that little fire going, like I said, and the key to that also is getting an audience who will go to work for you. That's the real trick. If you get to that point where in that 20 minutes a day you've connected with 10 people and made them love you more and made them think, wow, you really helped me. You know what you're talking about. You're a great person. And each of them, the old principle, each of them tells 10 people and draws that in. That can be magic when you start to get them working for you.
Yeah, totally. And every time you communicate with everybody, you have to tell them, you must tell 10 people about me.
That's right. That's your homework for today.
Yeah, well, okay. That was the
non-joking
the show right there. So we're at the end. Again, everybody, I'm so sorry that Rebekah wasn't really able to participate in the way that we had hoped today. Obviously, she had network problems. But any last thoughts you'd like to share, Mark?
Yeah, I'm just sorry that I wasn't able to find my blonde wig and try to fake it and fool people that Rebekah was on the whole time. So I apologize for that. But seriously, yeah, I think this is a great conversation. I think the number one thing I'd say, based on a lot of the questions that we were getting today, is don't despise the day of small beginnings, and don't despise small audiences if those audiences are loving you and they're engaged and they're interested in what you're doing. That's the beginning of adding value. And what a lot of us have found with social media and social media following and social media activity is that if it starts to take off for you, then you are going to find ways to justify spending more time on it. When you begin to see it bringing traffic to your site, or getting people to sign up for your emails, whatever the goal is that you might have, when you begin to see that happening, you get something that's working, you're going to work it more. So don't be afraid of starting small. Plant the seeds, water the garden that's in front of you, and build it one step at a time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, to me, it gets back to quality over quantity. By the way, Carmen Rojas did push a link into the event. You can't see the whole link here, but jump to the comments or just search for Jason Demer's profile on Forbes, and you'll see the article about quality over quantity. But it's not about huge followings. Yes, you want to grow your following, and you want to grow the quality of your relationships of your following in parallel. I guess that's the way I would really summarize it, because I'd much rather have a few very high quality relationships and grow those over time than a large number of relationships overall. So with that, sorry for all the difficulty we had today. I guess that's the 5th time I've said sorry, so I'll say sorry for saying sorry so many times, and I won't say sorry anymore. And with that, that's it for the Digital Marketing Excellence Show for today. Everybody, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you on the next show.
Bye, everybody.